Namaste. It's time for sunrise meditation. So today we're going to go through some breathing, some Gauranga breath meditation, japa meditation, kirtan, and some spiritual wisdom. So my name is Gayatri, and I'll be taking you through this guided session. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this morning meditation. So we'll begin by closing our eyes. Just starting to take our focus within, beginning with the breath. So we want to take our focus off the externals. Our mind is always on the externals, day in and day out, and it's exhausting and agitating. So what we want to do is to go within and create a beautiful, comfortable, peaceful inner world that we can go to at any time. It's described that through meditation, we can be in the eye of the storm. So even though chaos is going on around us, there's an eye in the storm, and we can go to that eye at any time and find that comfort, warmth, and peace that we need. So just remember that meditation is something that you can do at any time when you need it. It's there. So let's just focus on our breath, feeling the flow of the breath through the nostrils, in and out through the nostrils. If your mind starts to wander off, gently bring it back and place it again on your breath. Just being aware of all the effects that the breath has on your body, all the different feelings your breath has on your body. The expansion and contraction, the warmth and the coolness. The rising and falling of your belly and your chest. Expansion and contraction of your lungs. Just spending a moment to get in tune with the rhythm of your breath. We'll move into some Brahmari breathing, humming breath. But I like to add the mantra Om because we're getting that spiritual benefit as well. So we're going to do it in 3 parts. We're going to place our index and middle finger to the center of the chest. And we're going to take a nice deep breath, and then we're going to say the mantra Om, focusing on the humming part of the Om, the part. So Om. And do it right out for as long as you can for the whole breath. And it's going to be a low-pitched Om. We want to get that vibration into the heart chakra. So let's take an inhale, and we'll do 3 of these. Om. Inhale. Om. Bring the fingers up to that little V just below your throat. And we're going to say 3 middle toned or middle pitched Oms. Inhale. Om. Bring your fingers to the third eye. You can place them in between your eyebrows if you like, or if it's more comfortable on your forehead. And 3 high-pitched ohms. Inhale. Om. Inhale. Om. Last one. Om. Relax your hand down into your lap or onto your knees in Chin Mudra. And take a few nice deep yoga breaths. Filling the lungs completely. And exhaling completely. You might like to squeeze the abdomen gently at the end of each exhale to expel any stale air trapped in the lower lungs. Relaxing the breath, we want to keep to this nice, slow, deep, rhythmical breath, but a relaxed breath. We're moving into our Gauranga breath meditation. We're going to add the mantra Gauranga to our breath. The mantra is said in 4 syllables, Gaur, Ra, Ang, Ga. As you inhale, say the mantra within your mind. We want to really fill the mind with this beautiful transcendental spiritual mantra. And as you exhale, we'll say it out loud for the entire length of the exhalation, drawing it right out for the whole breath. So we'll do the first 3 breaths together in unison. On that 3rd breath, we'll exhale and say the mantra aloud. 3 more breaths. Holding the mantra within your mind, let it float there and resonate in your mind for a few more breaths. And when you're ready, you can pick up your beads and we'll practice some japa meditation. I actually practice quite a lot of this japa. I spend about an hour and 3/4 every day with japa. I think it's a wonderful start to the day. Focuses my mind for the day, it grounds me, gives me that spiritual nourishment. So many wonderful things that come from japa meditation. So we've got a head bead at the top, and we start at the bead next to the head bead, traditionally with the middle finger and thumb. And we're going to say the mantra Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Move to the next bead, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. And we're going to continue on until we get right round to the head bead again. And that is 1 round of japa meditation. You can go back again if you want, around and around, not crossing over the head bead. The head bead we say Hari Bol. And you can join in whenever you feel ready. If you don't have beads, just chant along with me. Hari Bol. And focus is to keep your mind, the idea of the meditation is to keep your mind on the sound. So if it does wander off, just gently keep bringing it back onto the sound. Gentle encouragement rather than a forced, you don't want to force the mind, just gently encourage it back onto the sound. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. 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 Haribo, Nitai Go, Nitai Go, Haribo. 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 Last one. Haribo, Nitai Go, Nitai Go, Haribo. Some kirtan now. Many different ways we can add these mantras to our life. Kirtan is a really fun activity. So I'm going to sing a mantra. Gopala Govinda. And I'll sing it through first, just once, and then you respond. Don't worry about your voice. Kirtan's not about the sound of the voice, it's about the power. This very potent mantra. Just let your mind relax and rest in this beautiful sound, this transcendental sound vibration. This transcendental sound vibration is the food that the soul so desperately needs. We often look at the body, look after the body. We forget about feeding the little bird within you, the eternal self within. We need spiritual food to thrive. So we look after our bodies in so many ways. We care for what we feed our bodies, try to make it healthy. But we neglect the needs of the soul. These mantras are that spiritual food which will nourish the soul, give you inner peace, inner satisfaction, and spiritual joy. Gopala, Govinda. Your turn. Govinda, Last but not least, a little bit of spiritual wisdom here from the ancient yoga text, the Bhagavad Gita. As the blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. So you'll find that when you understand your position, your essence, position and function in life, that you are the eternal spirit soul, then it changes your outlook on everything in life. So it will, in fact, burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. This knowledge is the most wonderful thing. So thank you for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you again next Monday. Namaste.